The clock above the counter ticked softly, marking another quiet afternoon inside the dusty roadside diner. The hum of an old ceiling fan mixed with the faint crackle of a radio playing country tunes. Outside, winter clouds rolled low over the mountains, and the wind carried the faint scent of gasoline and cold metal. Inside, a young waitress named Emily Sanders wiped the counter with calm precision, her tired eyes betraying a life that had seen more struggle than most her age. She wasn't the kind of girl people noticed twice: simple ponytail, plain white shirt, soft voice. But what no one knew was the fire that ran in her blood. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and standing up for what's right, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Let's spread a little more courage in the world. That day, 3 men walked into the diner. Leather jackets, steel-toed boots, the kind of arrogance that comes from never being told no. They smelled of beer and cheap tobacco, and as they sat down, the entire mood of the diner shifted. Emily greeted them politely, as she did with everyone, but they didn't respond with respect. Instead, one smirked, another whistled, and the third whispered something that made them all laugh. She ignored it. She dealt with worse. But when she turned to walk away, one of them reached out and tugged on her sleeve. "Hey, sweetheart, don't walk off so fast." Emily froze. Her breath hitched. She tried to stay calm, muttering that she had other tables to serve, but they weren't listening. The tension thickened like storm clouds over a quiet field. Then, in an instant of cruelty, one of them grabbed the collar of her shirt and yanked. The sound of fabric tearing cut through the diner like a gunshot. Cups fell, coffee spilled, and for a second, time stood still. Emily stumbled back, clutching her torn shirt, her eyes wide with shock and shame. The laughter that followed felt colder than the snow outside. But before anyone could react, the front door opened with a heavy creak. 3 motorcycles stood outside, engines still rumbling. The man who stepped in first filled the doorway like a shadow. Jack Iron Sanders, president of the Hells Angels North Ridge chapter, a man whose name carried both fear and respect across miles of open road. He wasn't there for trouble. He had simply come to see his little sister, the girl who'd refused his help after their parents died, the one who wanted to make her own honest living. When his eyes landed on Emily, trembling, humiliated with her shirt torn, something inside him snapped. He didn't speak, didn't shout, didn't even blink. He just stepped forward, every stride deliberate, heavy with quiet fury. His boots echoed against the linoleum floor. The 3 men looked up, their smirks fading the moment they saw the symbol on his leather vest, the winged skull, the red and white patch, and then they saw Emily look at him, her tearful whisper barely audible, "Jack." The diner went silent. Jack took off his leather jacket and gently wrapped it around his sister's shoulders. His rough hands trembled as he did, his jaw tightening. For a moment, the brother and sister just stood there, pain, love, and rage crashing together in their eyes. Then Jack turned to the men. "Which one of you," he asked in a low, gravelly voice, "put your hands on her?" No one answered. The silence was suffocating. Outside, the wind howled like a warning. His crew, 4 men in matching vests, took a step forward, forming a wall behind him. One of the men finally stuttered, It was a joke, man. We didn't mean." Jack's stare cut through him like a blade. "A joke?" he said softly. "That's what you call this?" He looked around the diner, at the frightened cook behind the counter, the old man who dropped his coffee cup, the couple in the corner frozen in place. Then he looked back at Emily, who was clutching his jacket close, shaking. Jack exhaled slowly. "There's a rule we ride by," he said. "Respect. You don't touch a woman, ever. Not a stranger, not a waitress, not anyone." The 3 men lowered their heads, the gravity of what they'd done sinking in. Jack leaned closer, his voice a whisper, calm but lethal. "You touched the wrong girl. What happened next? No one really saw. The men were escorted outside, the roar of engines filled the air, and when the noise faded, all that remained was the smell of burnt rubber and a silence that weighed heavy with justice. The next morning the same men were found outside town, beaten but breathing, not a bone broken more than necessary, not a drop of blood wasted. On their jackets a single note was pinned, "Respect, learn it." Emily never spoke much about that night again, but people noticed a change in her. She stood taller, smiled less, and her eyes, once soft, now held a quiet strength. Jack visited her often after that. Sometimes he'd sit at the counter, order a black coffee, and just watch her work. No words needed. She'd pour him a cup, and he'd nod, proud but protective. On the front of his motorcycle now there was a small sticker that read, "For my sister, ride with respect." Over time, that little diner became more than just a stop on the highway. It became a safe place, for travelers, for women, for anyone who needed warmth and understanding. Emily never let fear define her again. When new girls came to work there, nervous and unsure, she'd take them aside and say, "Don't ever let anyone make you feel small. You're stronger than you think." One evening, months later, as the sun set behind the hills, a group of bikers stopped by. One of them, a young woman with tattoos and tired eyes, looked at Emily and said, "You're Jack Sanders' sister, right?" Emily nodded with a faint smile. The woman smiled back. "He's a legend. Says he rides for respect because of you." Emily's eyes softened. She looked out the window at the open road, where the faint echo of motorcycles still hummed in the distance. "He rides for all of us," she whispered. "For every woman who ever had to be brave when no one was watching." If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Because sometimes a story like this can remind someone out there that they're not alone. Comment below. Respect, courage, and kindness. That's the real strength. This isn't just a story about revenge. It's about love, respect, and the unbreakable bond between a brother and his sister. Because real strength isn't in anger. It's in protecting what's pure,